Hello there. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, but rest assured that I haven't abandoned you all just yet. I've been busy in the meantime. I just started my first year of college studying software engineering, as well as working a part-time job as always. But recently, I felt the urge to get back into coding some fun stuff and getting back in touch with this community. So here it is, episode 2 of making a world generation system, continents, islands, and cameras. The main topic for this episode will be the continent's world type, the world type that I had originally envisioned when I started this project. But as you saw in episode 1, that didn't work out exactly as I had expected. Anyways, I needed to think up a way to get these continents on the map, and here's how I ended up making them. We start off with a grid that is filled with an ocean. A few points are then randomly selected that will act as starting points for the continents. Then, I calculate the probabilities that land will be generated based on how far away a tile is from the origin point. The further away a tile is from the origin, the less likely it is to become land. After all that, some smoothing should be applied and the climates should be generated. Now that we've made a plan, let's see it in action. We start off yet again by creating an empty grid, but this time we fill the grid with ocean tiles. Next, we need to generate some starting points from which the continents will be built. We generate 2 random numbers for the X and Y position and run a check to see if the selected position isn't too close to another starting point. This check is to make sure that the continents don't generate inside of each other. I also run a check to see if the randomly generated points are not near the edges of the world, as that would often lead to half-sized continents spawning on the edge of the map. These 2 checks needed quite some tweaking to get right. A lot of the time, the continents were too close to each other for the distance check to pass, because the spawning area of the origin points was too small. And other times, the origin points were too close to the edge. But in the end, I managed to get a result that I was satisfied with. Next up is generating the rest of the land. To make this a bit easier for myself, I only spawn plains tiles and generate the climates later on. I will be using quadratic functions once more to determine the probability of a land tile spawning. This function, however, should be dynamic so that the size of the continent changes when I adjust the continent size variable. This is what I eventually came up with. In this function, the maximum chance of a land tile spawning is at y equals 10, and 0% is at y equals 0. As you can see, changing the continent size variable affects the probability of a land tile spawning. A higher continent size will result in a higher probability, and a lower continent size will result in a lower probability. The x value in this function is determined by how far away the current tile is from the closest origin point. These probabilities are later compared to a random integer between 0 and 100 to generate a rough version of the land. And yet again, we make use of the world smoothing system. This system, however, is an altered version of the original to accommodate for the new land generation. For example, only ocean and plains tiles are used, and the system favors land more than ocean, because the original version massively reduced the size of the land in this world type. The smoothened version of the land looks something like this. Now that the shape of the continents is complete, we can move on to adding climates to the land. The same quadratic functions for determining the ice cap probability and deserts probability from the lake world type are used. This time, however, the ocean tiles are left out of the calculation, as I don't want it to alter the shape of the continents anymore. After comparing these probabilities with random numbers and generating the climates, the world looks like this. The last thing that I wanted to do was smoothen out the climates a bit, so I ran yet another altered version of the world smoothing system made specifically for the climates. After all these steps, the continent's world type has been completed. some of the possible worlds it can produce are shown here. Now, this is the beauty about the way I made this world type. Say that I wanted to make an island world type which has a lot of smaller sized islands in it. Because I based the generation on the continent size and continent amount variables, I could simply choose to generate more continents at a smaller size to create the island's world type. Then, with a little bit of tweaking, it is already done. Oh, and as a bonus, I've also made a simple camera system with which you can zoom and pan your way around the map. Nothing too special here, so I won't cover it in this video. And that's been it for this devlog. As always, I love to hear from you guys, so do leave some feedback in the comments. If you want to stay updated with my experiments and projects, please consider subscribing. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.